my parents, wanted to sell the land and, retire. And I said that, I'm like, times have changed where retiring with a savings account, it's not the thing anymore. It's residual income and balancing your debt really is what it comes down to. And so I spoke to my parents. I said, hey, I can run this. I'll do everything. Just sit back and watch and enjoy it.
All right, Nate, welcome to the Venue RX. Thank you so much for being here today. This is going to be a fun discussion.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, definitely. So your venue, not at the View, you are in Washington State. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah. So I'm at an hour east of Spokane. I'm sorry, west of Spokane.
Okay. Why the location? Take me back and kind of help me understand, like, how did you get to opening a venue in hour west of Spokane?
Yeah. I've been an entrepreneur since I was a kid selling marbles on the street, back in the early 90s or late 90s. And I was down in Portland and I loved the vineyards down there. And I always wanted to build a wedding venue, but it was kind of, I guess, one that was higher up so that when you're at a certain elevation, you're not obstructed by what's behind the venue, right? So that anybody was taking a picture, to have a 360-degree view of just what's behind it, not cars, not buildings and everything. And, that was kind of unrealistic. I'm trying to build a huge plot of land and then raise it up, 200 feet, right? So, crazily enough, my grandfather bought 35 acres back in the 70s that was in this valley overlooking a lake. And I went out there with my fiance a few years back to just kind of check it out and camp and hike. And that's where I was like, well, we have the land. My grandfather put water and power on it already. Why not make something out of this and kind of share it with the world? Because it's pretty remarkable. There's really no buildings, nothing obstructing it. And that's where it came to fruition, was just hiking, an hour up this hill to see this view and then understand that there could be something here.
Wow. That's a really interesting story. And I can't wait to dive more into it. Okay. So let's go fast forward. Let's talk today. Where are you? And then we're going to kind of like unwind the story backwards. What are you doing today in terms of, like, are you hosting events? What does it look like when you rent the property out? Talk to me about those things.
Yeah. So, me and my fiance really did this, and we just kind of jumped, head first into it. And really today we're marketing, and, I'm online, Instagram as well. And we're doing, open showings, open houses, probably every 2 months, once we've collected enough interest. And we had our first wedding. We finished the venue last August. So we had our first wedding in September. 190 people were out there, which was insane. It went extremely well. And then we have one this year, and we've kind of kept things slow because we've been really building these last 2 years. And, from just the organic marketing and Instagram, just kind of posting organically, we have about 6 to 8 next year. Already, booked and deposited. So we've kept it really, didn't want to overwhelm ourselves. I still work a full W-2 job, full time. And I've got even another business that I on the side run too as well. So I didn't want to overwhelm myself, but I knew this was the right direction to, at least rent the venue and then find all the vendors to facilitate.
Totally. Help me, and you sound like you're super busy. That's like, at least you got the full-time job, you got the side hustle, you got these different things going on. Tell me about the venue for anyone who's not, on YouTube, and, we're going to have pictures of it and everything. But, like, for anyone who's not on the venue, could you describe, or on the video side of things, could you describe what the venue is like?
Yeah. So it's, essentially redone. It's all built based on a hill. Okay. So we had to cut a 2,000-foot road into the hill, and snake it up this hill, and then build landing pads out of the hill to make it flat, which was interesting in itself, running power and water up an elevation of 600 feet plus a 1,700-foot run, had its own complications, but we we built the road, it's all in the trees, the way the contractor did it. So when you're going, as soon as you enter, it's okay, there's an old shop, that's your bridal suite, there's parking, and then you head up the hill into this dense forest. You're completely secluded. And so you get to the top and you have yourself there now, full tiny home on wheels with full power and water, full lighting, string lights around the side and over the top of the venue. And the whole venue, it has artificial sport turf. So it's always green and it's always clean. So, my goal with my fiance was to provide a modern, party, young, urban, with a view type of venue that was different than anything out there. And I thought, that would probably be the way to go because it's something different. It's unique. And, we do overnight stays as well.
For the overnight stays, was that something that was always part of the plan or something you added as you went along?
It was kind of part of the plan, but then it grew because we started realizing that we could put RVs on the venue as well. You can camp on the turf because it's 6,000 square feet of artificial turf. So there's a lot of room. With the tiny home, it was there to just be part of that tiny home kind of club in nature. But then, the wedding couple can stay there overnight and then have people RVing. And I think that's kind of the turn here is where if you're traveling, an hour out of the city and there's a hotel that's been redone right next to us about 4 minutes down the road, why not stay and actually enjoy versus being rushed?
So true. That's a really great point. So you're saying, were you saying there was a hotel 4 minutes away that just had been redone?
Yeah, so it was an old golfing course, and the hotel, I think, will hold like 35 people, but it's been fully remastered and restored, along with a full restaurant and bar now. So that pretty much opened the same time we did, and it's literally 4 minutes down the road.
That's awesome, because that, I'm sure, provides a little bit of amenities for people who are going to come in and rent space. So your venue is pretty much exclusively outdoors, is that correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay. Is it close? Like, are you close to rental companies or catering companies or things like that? Or is the closest sort of like vendor support out closer to Spokane?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we built this not knowing. Thankfully, there are pretty much vendors to complement any service needed when it comes to to catering, alcohol, because people out there are essentially rebuilding trailers and hauling the trailer in, doing the whole bar scene, and then leaving right after. Table and chairs, we have that vendor, golf carts, tents. You name it. Essentially anything can be taken out there. And now with it so up and coming, and the restaurant nearby, the catering is probably going to be coming straight from there.
That's huge. So this is really interesting. This is one of the venues that I think has the most options for creativity and kind of customization for people with this incredible view. Yeah. So I'm curious about your marketing and like the type of couples that you're marketing to. When you think about it, like who is your ideal client who wants to get married to the property?
I think it's those that are already kind of born and raised in, your Idaho, Oregon, Eastern Washington, kind of the rural areas that have grown up because they're used to the outdoors already, but they want that hint of luxury. And that's where it comes. You got artificial turf. It's, never watered. It's always green. You've got a brand new 2023 tiny home, fully loaded, with 2 lofts, full kitchen. And then you've got string lighting that essentially I took 1,000, 1,100 light bulbs and strung them to make walls around it. So at night, it's just a wall of lights to enjoy nature. So that's kind of our clientele is, surrounding areas, but those that want outdoor, luxury feel.
Would you say then that your clientele are more of a destination type couple versus someone who's coming from the, 2-hour radius?
It's hard to tell, but most of the inquiries are not destination weddings. So it's more like, okay, we grew up here. We've always wanted to get married here, but we couldn't find this ideal spot.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. From the pictures, I mean, the pictures are stunning, and that wall of lights you were talking about, is definitely a signature look and something that I know people will definitely enjoy. So, as you started building this, like, do you have a construction background or like a contracting background? Like, how did you, I don't know, bravery, I feel like is like the word that's coming to mind in terms of like, how did you have the bravery or the courage to say, hey, we're just going to take on this job that's going to require a lot of construction work without a background? Or do you have a background?
I definitely don't have a background in construction. I've definitely learned a lot in the 2 years. About 6-7 years ago, I started my first business. It's a digital app. Okay. And I went through, a lot of bigger trying to figure that out and understand that. And I realized, okay, I got to the end, got to a product. I understood that. So I knew kind of the steps to take, what checkpoints. And really it came down to, I'm not a coder, but I'm a visionary. So find a good coder that you can communicate with, find a good contractor that can share the same vision, and then tell me what would make it better. So for example, if I want to do this road, well, he comes to me and says, okay, you can do the road like this. It's going to look like this, but I would recommend going through it this way so you can capture the most amount of trees. I'm not thinking about that, but when you find someone that's going to give you opinions on the job that you're doing, that's when you have the right person.
Yeah.
And contractors and anybody for that matter, but clear communication and getting out of behind the wall of insecurity of having that conversation. Because I'll even just say the construction alone was probably $200,000, right? And so when a contractor's doing something and says it's going to be more because of this, this, and this, and it keeps adding up, that wasn't a clear, message at the beginning. So we had those ups and downs, but the same contractor really pretty much did 90% of that entire venue.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's huge. And Nate, that's a really good point to highlight, I feel like, because it's easy to not be clear because you may not know what you want at the outset. And so what were some of those questions that you might have asked yourself to kind of help you get clarity around what you really wanted them to do and maybe what you wanted to see as part of the property when the vision, it sounds like, was very much evolving?
That's a tough question, but what I can say I've learned is make sure what you want is just documented early before it starts and have that conversation. Because if it changes down the road, then you can go back to the documentation and look at that and say, hey, this is what I envisioned. When you explain it this way, where did we fault? Right? So, you almost have to just kind of say, this is it. And then you have to tweak it along the way. But be very clear and get uncomfortable with having the conversation with someone that you're hiring. Because again, I hired them. They didn't hire me.
That's a great point. And I think if you're not used to that, there is a little bit of like uncomfortability to kind of not put your foot down, but it does feel a little like you have to really say exactly what you want. And depending on how you were raised, depending on what you're used to, have the style, right? 100%. I relate to that quite a bit. So currently where you're at, is the venue done or are you still adding some things to it?
Yeah, the venue is pretty much done. I think there's just going to be a little bit of tweaks here and there, but we're up and running, ready to go, as of right now. We are ready. So I don't think there isn't too many additions left, except obviously I think at some point we'll expand and put maybe bungalows I'm in and make use of that. But I think that's a little later down the road. I think at this point we got to get the exposure and get the clients in.
Yeah, I think with how unique it is, the beautiful vistas and views and, with the light wall and some of these different things, like capturing that in photos from the events that are going to be taking place there. You said you have 1 this year and then you have 6 next year?
Yes.
Okay, got it. So how are you currently marketing? Like, how are you getting the word out about this?
Really, we're just on the Wedding Wire and the Nod. My fiance made an Instagram page and started building that and just kind of commenting on people that were getting engaged and just kind of organically sharing it that way. And we've gotten, really good traffic there. But really it's been just on that page. I didn't, again, even there, we're getting a lot of inquiries. I just didn't want to, overwhelm myself because we still have, we still can put ourselves on Google. We haven't done that. We don't have our own website. We're not avidly reaching out. And I kind of wanted to try an organic approach a little bit, again, paying a little bit of dollars to, Wedding Wire and the Knot, but I kind of wanted to see how it went organically first for a few years.
That makes sense. What is your goal? Like, where are you looking to be in terms of the bookings?
I think for the next few years, I really want to see 15 to 20. And I think that's really possible, especially with the more value that we keep building. I've been in sales for a long, long time, over a decade, and it's not about the price, it's about the value. So the more we're just going to reinvest. We're going to probably reinvest in our own table and chairs, have that out there, obviously bungalows, and continue to expand is going to build a value that people would be willing to pay for.
When you think about pricing, I know we chatted a little bit before, you're pretty early in the stages here. Tell me the process that you went through and maybe are still going through to figure out, what you want to charge.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is, okay, obviously for the first, probably close to 5 years, you're going to be, flat or negative, unless you're really, articulating how you're using the money. But, I looked at the surrounding areas. I looked at the other wedding venues nearby and what they offered. And it's not the same unique level. So then I started with kind of a price and just kind of said, okay, with the first 50 inquiries, what's our conversion rate from that point? Obviously taking in your costs, that you're going to be spending on a yearly basis and get that number, and then say, okay, if you got to do 15 weddings, what profit are you going to make from that, off of that? So, did some research on other venues. I got a lot of insight from other couples that were getting married at other venues, and said, hey, what would you pay for that if that was an ideal situation where you could get everyone there? Oh, okay, it'd be this. So I mean, for a day on average, what the going rate has been for about $3,200 for the day. And that's not including overnight and everything else, but to rent the venue the way you see it on the website, $3,200 for the day.
That's pretty affordable. It gives people a lot of room to customize
exactly
their day and pour that money into catering, because the catering is going to have a travel fee, getting the rentals, getting some of those different things on there. But to secure that view and the space, I mean, that's a really cool, that's a really good price point where to start. And like you said, as you start scaling up, you
right.
more costs because you're building in more value.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. In terms of your team, like, do you have a team that you work with, people to kind of help run the weddings, or is it just you and your fiance? Like, who's everyone that you're working with?
Yeah. So, it's me and my fiance, I've got my contractor, he does the background work. Really, it's me and her at this point. We're running it. I live 5 hours away, but it's been a godsend of partnering with these vendors and building good relationships with literally everybody I meet and letting them burn bridges, if that makes sense, versus me. Again, I could call up, multiple bartending services, catering, and have a wedding facilitated immediately, without scheduling issues. So, even down to self-showings, everything's on Wi-Fi now. I can control who's going in and out of the venue when I'm not there. Everything's locked, cameras, they sign an agreement to come in. And if you want to do a self-showing, more power to you. If you want me there, we can schedule that too. But we've really made it so that we could do this remotely.
That's incredible. And that's, I think, something that's difficult for a lot of venue owners to do because of the property. Like, maybe multiple entrances and exits. Maybe it's on a property that they live on as well. And so you don't want to have that level of access. And so that's pretty neat. What was your experience like getting Wi-Fi up there?
Well, no one would service it that was hardline. I had Verizon when I went out there. That didn't work. So I just have 2 hotspots on AT&T that work seamlessly, and I built some antennas and put them up. And I mean, you got full streaming and full camera access, full Wi-Fi in the bridal suite at the top of the venue. Because there's no other. So T-Mobile, they don't work out there. It's just AT&T. So we got lucky with getting the internet, and unlimited internet at that for the top of the hill as well.
That's huge. Yeah, for like social posting, if you're going to do, any of that. That's incredible. So when you think about why you purchased this venue, and I want to kind of like zoom out here for a second, it really sounds like it started with a vision that you had about like this beautiful space, right, for people to come and enjoy. Has it transitioned and kind of evolved from that as you've done the process? And are you thinking it more in terms of the financial side of things, or not as much? Is it still the fulfillment of a vision?
I think it really came to fruition when, I had the idea, gosh, I want to say 7-8 years ago. And I was like, oh, it'd be cool to have a wedding venue, blah, blah, blah. Kevin O'Leary always saying, get into weddings. They're always good coming around, right? And, sure. But I think it came to fruition when, as an adult, because my grandfather had the land and I've been there as a child. When I went back there, as a 27-year-old, it was climbing up to the top of the hill and saying to myself, my grandfather bought this for a reason. He hunted on it. He put power and water in here, and it's the only lot out of 5, which is close to 200 acres, that has water and power. He couldn't use the land. It was just right there at the base, right next to the road. That's where they went. And if they went hiking, that was like an all-day trip, right? And so when I hiked the top, I just kind of sat there and I was like, there's something more here, one, to honor my grandfather and build a legacy for my daughter and my family. Because my parents, wanted to sell the land and, retire. And I sat there and I'm like, times have changed where retiring with a savings account it's not the thing anymore. It's residual income and balancing your debt really is what it comes down to. And so I spoke to my parents. I said, hey, I can run this. I'll do everything. Just sit back and watch and enjoy it. And so I think that feeling alone is like just kind of giving back to those that raised me. I think that's my vision. And so it's really amazing. I kind of get choked up because when I'm up there, my family's up there. We went there 2 weeks ago finally because the tiny home arrived, all plugged in, ready to go after 2 years. I can't explain in words what it feels like to be at that position where you have complete silence, you have a view, you have yourself, you have your family. It's just, it's weird, but it is great. It really happens.
Yeah, no, it's not weird at all. I totally get what you're saying. And it's interesting how the vision of the future has changed. Like it used to be like, retiring with a savings account, but like that, it's hard to say maybe because I'm not retired, and it doesn't sound like you're retired. But, that it definitely things have shifted. Being able to provide that for your family, like you said, for your daughter, that's incredible. That's awesome. Nate, I'm really excited to kind of watch your journey as you guys continue, booking the property, as you continue putting pictures up, as you get a website online and things like that. For the time being, if someone wanted to connect with you and they wanted to either, check the space out for a venue for their own wedding or just see what you're up to and kind of track with your progress, where would they go?
Googling our name, we're the only one with that name, and we'll be the first to show up. So, not at the view, but KNOT, like tying the knot, you'll find us and you can reach out on Instagram or the Wedding Wire or the Knot.
Very cool. Yeah. Instagram, you got some good pictures going on there. And I like that. Not at the view. There's certainly a view. Yeah. The name was, we struggled with the name, and
I'm one to be kind of different with names, and for some reason that one stuck. So here we are. And yeah, just a little play on words, but I think it fits.
Yeah, it's very cool. Well, Nate, thank you so much for coming on the show today. This was awesome. Can't wait for people to check it out. And not at the view, everyone. Thanks again.
Thank you.
We document and share best practices around owning, operating, and managing world-class wedding venues.